Well, right now, the Supreme Court is tackling one of President Trump's most provocative policies. The court is hearing oral arguments for a case that could end birthright citizenship in the U.S. The arguments center around the constitutionality of Trump's January 2025 executive order, which seeks to limit birthright citizenship to people who have at least one parent who is a U.S. citizen or who is a legal permanent resident. As a result, babies born to temporary visitors who entered the country legally or to people who entered illegally would not be citizens at birth. Trump's executive order was immediately blocked by courts around the country and has never been in effect. And adding to the drama in this case, President Trump, he was seen leaving the White House this morning. He is attending the oral arguments in person. It's the first time a sitting president has ever attended a Supreme Court proceeding. Also at court this morning, many activists and spectators outside as News 4's McGrath joins us live there this morning. Maggie, you've been talking to people as these oral arguments get underway. What have you heard so far?
Well, good morning. Yeah, you can see the big crowd that's gathered here in front of the Supreme Court. And this is a very unprecedented, unusual situation, as you've said, a sitting president coming to the Supreme Court to listen to oral arguments in the case. The Supreme Court's Historical Society says it has never happened before. And this is a case involving the president himself and his executive order, so that makes it even more unusual. And this executive order would change the rules on birthright citizenship. So, again, receiving a lot of attention here in a very unusual situation. Now, as the justices listen to oral arguments, protesters against the executive order are rallying here at the Supreme Court. Announced on the first day of the president's second term, the executive order would limit birthright citizenship. To qualify, a child would have to have one parent who was either a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident. So babies born in the U.S. to someone who entered the United States illegally, they would not be granted citizenship. Same would go for a visitor here temporarily from another country. If that person gave birth while visiting, child would not be a citizen under this executive order. Now, several groups, including the ACLU, are urging the justices to strike down the executive order. They say birthright citizenship is protected by the Constitution.
It really strike at what is a fundamental part of being an American, that if you are born here, you are an American. And that is plainly written in the 14th Amendment to the Constitution.
I'm a first-generation immigrant. My parents were immigrated here, and I was lucky enough to be born here. This case, being as a family with immigrants, it's kind of scary for me because if this were to pass, I'm just afraid and that my citizenship will be removed, basically.
The overwhelming majority of people protesting here are opposed to the executive order, but there were a handful of people outside the Supreme Court who supported. I spoke to a man who is a naturalized U.S. citizen. He says he and his family went through the process legally, and that is the way he believes it should happen. He doesn't think people who come to the U.S. illegally should automatically get citizenship for their children.
Basically what they're saying is my parents were a bunch of fools, they were idiots, they were stupid because they followed the law, which is why I had to wait decades to get birthright citizenship. And what the people here in the Supreme Court may say is, oh, your parents are idiots. They should just come across the country. You'd have been a birthright citizenship right away. And that's what you're basically saying. Should that happen? And I'm saying, no, that's not fair.
So you can see all of the people who have turned out here in front of the Supreme Court to have their voices heard. This is a case that could have very far-reaching implications. The justices are listening to oral arguments right now. And again, President Donald Trump is inside listening to those oral arguments. It's the first time a sitting president has ever done something like this. Back to you.
That's